Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Scousers Premier League panel show Tuesday nights. I'm your host, as always, over here, Timothy, representing Liverpool. Jamie is with us with Chelsea, Glenn with Brentford, and we're hoping Io is going to be able to join us at least for a little bit to kind of like talk about um, Manchester United, because obviously we're gonna talk a lot about him. I know he was only going to be able to make the first part of the show, so hopefully he'll be able to join us shortly, and then we can kind of start talking a little bit of like the Manchester United thing that I was going to leave for the middle, but we'll talk about it. I'm sure he's a happy man because we talked about it before with him, and he was not a fan of Ten Hag, which we were. We had our moment of silence last night on our podcast, as I feel like he has brought us great moments and he should be respected for it. But before we hop onto that, I guess, oh, well, there we go. Great timing over here. There he is, Ayo, representing United. I see you smiling, buddy. You must be happy.
Yes, you can see my title. My title says "The King is dead." Long live the King.
Yeah, so that's why I know you're only for the first part of the show. So I figured like we'll start with United and we'll talk about that. I mean, asked you before. I mean, we've kind of enjoyed talking about United misery over here, but we talked about it before, and you told us like you weren't a big fan of Ten Hag and you thought it was a mistake and stuff. Like, how do you see it now? The way it's unfolded, it feels very odd to me from outside looking in, because I watched the game this weekend for the most of it at least.
Yeah.
And that game could have been 4-0 at halftime.
Well,
then he's not getting cans yesterday. So, like, how do you take it as a United fan? The timing of it, and they got that replacement right away. Was it something in the background working on it, maybe?
I think in order to answer this question well, right, let's look at the timeline of Ten Hag. I think if you look back from everything that's happened, right, I think the first time I wanted him gone was December when we got crashed out of the Champions League. It was December last year, right?
Yeah.
Last year. That's when I thought he should be fired first. But then people were like, "Oh, that's too quick." It's okay. I get that. Then I thought at the end of the season, like as came on here and said that he should have been gone, regardless of what happened, and they gave him a contract extension, which I clearly said to everyone on my channel. Also I said it, shameless plug, Footy Fantasy, like, share, subscribe. Just have to leave that in there. But I said it in the summer that was a big mistake to give him the contract. And clearly, based on everything that's happened, and they talked to Robert De Zerbi, they talked to Tuchel, it's clear, very, very clear that they were not sold on him. But for some weird reason, they decided to continue with him till into the season. And I would suspect that they had maybe a mark, like a contingency plan, maybe after 10 games, depending on where we are, this is what we're going to pivot to. Because clearly they had been talking to Amorim for at least a month. Like this, it didn't come out from nowhere, right? They had been talking to him through intermediaries like they always do, and it didn't come out from nowhere. So
he was available. I guess that's like the shocking thing, because he was linked with Liverpool, West Ham, and stuff like that. Yes. I could understand. I mean, everybody thought they would keep going with Ruud, right? Because they had nobody. Like, that's the only reason I think it was writing on the wall. They stuck with Ten Hag, but they went with a manager who was available in summer. Then why not get him in summer?
I agreed. I said it. I thought it was a bad decision. They should have gotten a new manager in the summer. You ride with the person so you can profile the players he wants in the summer. You can give him time to work in preseason. It was a chance, in my opinion, to do a reboot of like, okay, we've made a mistake, like we come in, this is who we want to work with going forward. This is the plan, long-term plan. But sticking with Ten Hag was a really, really bad decision. I think it was a bad, because now, like you said, 10 games in, now you pull the plug on someone just 10 games in because it's gone bad, especially when you did not want the person in the summer. It just reads it's a bad start by Ineos. Even though there's a second school of thought, people have said the players that they bought, even though some of them were Ten Hag players, they were players that any club would have, like, De Ligt's a good defender, right? Like I said, I've said it. I think he's a good defender. I don't think he's great, but he's good. He's a good defender that is available. Most clubs will buy him. Lenny Euro's a good young prospect. Madrid wanted to get in, right? Mazraoui, this is a good fullback. He's 28, but he's good. He's a good fullback. Xerxes, young, they got him for really cheap. Ugarte is, despite his flaws, I think he's a useful midfielder. So the second school of thought I've heard other people say is, yes, they bought Ten Hag players, but they just bought players who were going to be good players regardless. So it wasn't like they were Ten Hag that no other manager can work with them, right? So I am happy he's gone. I think Ineos now, from here on forward, are they're in debit to me. They're in debit right now. Like, they've made a bad mistake and they have to work really hard, diligently, to make sure the next manager and the next set of recruitment of players over the next transfer windows, they have to get it right.
Yeah, that's like the interesting to me. I mean, I was like, Amarim was available. Why don't you guys go after this place? So it gives a taste. I don't know what, I mean, I'll come to you guys because, we're basically outside looking in. Like, Glenn, it looks like they did go after other people. They did talk to other people over summer, and they were either shut down or couldn't agree or whatever. So now they're spending 10 million, mind you, to get him out of the contract. And then we'll talk about the assistant thing as well. Like, I think that's like kind of like, I just heard about that right before we got on air, and I was like, that's kind of a weird. But anyway, so they paid 10 million to get him. And now they're going to be like, here's Ajax. Can you manage him in Premier League, basically? Because the thing is, like, when I know a lot about Amarim because he was rumored with Liverpool. So he plays the 3-4-3. And at the time, it was attractive to us. We were like, oh, we can see, what he'll do with Trent, blah, 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 and stuff. How does it look to you, Glenn? Like that, the fact that, I guess more than the firing, because we all were like just waiting for the day, I guess, but the replacements and how fast they did the replacement, which is probably a plus. But at the same time, it says a lot in the background.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they must have, of course, had this, slightly figured out in the build up to the, to the fallout, I guess, from the West Ham game. I think, the timing for quite a few of us feels a little peculiar. And I'm not even just saying, why wasn't it the summer? Because that obviously makes the most sense. And then it just beggars belief that they allowed him to invest. Now, you can't have it both ways. You can't retain a manager and say, we're not going to support you in building a better team. But maybe blank checkbook's a little bit strong, but to support his buying spree as much as they did, as generously as they did, fully in the knowledge that they didn't trust him long-term moving forward, that they didn't really see this necessarily as a viable, powerful project. It was kind of like, hey, we've got the cups. There's been so many flashpoints, right? If Man City beat them as we all expected 4-0 in that cup final, probably a different story. Even more short term, if Brentford, if we had beaten them, this is, he was on such thin ice on the tightrope the entire last couple of weeks. You get the feeling if Brentford, if we had won that game, which, we didn't play too badly at, especially in the first half, maybe that was his moment then. And the West Ham game comes along. And, we're watching the game and there's these moments that feel as if you're having a bad time as a manager. These really reinforce it, right? The Dallo miss has been mocked across social media. There was a new angle I saw today, which was incredible, which was even worse. You thought it was bad enough on the usual screen. There's a view behind him. You don't see that at my Sunday league. You see the penalty that was dubious at best. VAR very controversially, intervening when it doesn't appear to be any clear and obvious error. So you have these things in that game that, sure, if you're building a narrative and you're Ten Hag, you're just like, why is it me? Why is it pouring with rain on me? This particular game, it was just, especially, as they played so well in the first half at times. But you get the feeling that he must have been, ready. And back channels, there must have been some understanding that he would be open to this because it's been wrapped up so quickly, of course. You get the feeling, I still find it interesting that Thomas Tuchel, he took the England job, and I still get the sense that potentially, and hey, I don't know United obviously as much as you, but would Ten Hag maybe have got the push earlier if Tuchel hadn't taken the England job and had shown a great interest in joining United? Perhaps, but it came, but they did these interviews, and again, we've talked about this before on the show, but my favorite part of the summer of this narrative is that they basically interviewed him for his own job, which he already had. They essentially gave him his own job. And then, we're barely 2, 3, 4 months down the line, and he's been fired from that very same job. So on the outside looking in, it's puzzling. From the inside, I know my friends who are United fans are just frustrated. And I think you're right to be like, the debt kind of metaphor is a really good one. I mean, Ineos has messed up here. There's no way to really sugarcoat this. It's embarrassing. It shows a lack of leadership. It shows a lack of decisiveness. In some ways, it might show a lack of patience if you're going to back Ten Hag or back until the end of the season. Some people might say that. I think fewer and fewer week in, week out. But, I'm excited to see how this goes with the new manager. It's a shame we're not going to have the clown show every week, of course. And
we'll still have it. Don't worry. We'll still have it.
Oh, we'll see. Hopefully. But, you take a look at his record and, obviously it's quite exciting. Although one thing I will say is one more thing is that, both these managers coming in, Ten Hag and the new manager coming in now, right? So Amorim is this promising manager, right? This is a tweet from Sean Conley. He's won silverware with Sporting and has a 71.73% win ratio. Very positive. Eric Ten Hag was also, when they hired him, promising manager, won silverware with Ajax, obviously, and had a 73.49 win ratio. So, I think it would be short-sighted to imagine it's going to be this incredible, majestic change because he's going to have to acclimatize to the Premier League. And how many managers have found that challenging? So that's something I want to keep our eye on as the season progresses.
Yeah, because I do want to come back to Io on that and ask about how all this fits. But Jamie, I mean, that's the thing, because I do agree with Io in terms of over the summer as players were signed, I was like, they're finally making, I don't know, on paper, smart moves, in terms of the quality of the players. But now you're bringing in a guy who kind of plays a different formation. And I'm sure they didn't call him and be like, hey, you think you would play, this guy if you buy him and then we hire you? So yes, they're quality players, but we don't know if they fit. So Jamie, if Amorim comes in and says, hey, we got you this really nice chocolates, we got you this really nice vanilla and stuff like that, you're going to make a big cake, right? And he's like, no, man, I was going to make fucking soup, so I can't use any of this shit. So he's going to want his own ingredients, regardless of how good quality they are, because he does play a unique system. I can't remember the last time United played with a back three, to be honest. But what do you think about it, Jamie?
I wish they didn't make the change the week before the Chelsea game. It would have been nice to have one more Eric Ten Hag game.
But new manager back. Yeah.
It does. It's like Dan Ashworth's first main decision in charge, right? You could be trigger happy. But ultimately, most big clubs, directors of football, they're picking players that can work in several systems to support what I said. The fact that a lot of them played at Ajax also leans into what Glenn suggested, that they do have Ten Hag's fingerprints all over them. But United on paper has a decent squad. Admittedly, in the current form they're in, you wouldn't bank on them to beat anyone, but there's certainly potential there. They're good players. They are expensive. So in the right hands, in theory, they could be turned around. I think everyone was saying the very similar things about Chelsea midway or this time last year. We had a little bit of momentum through Pochettino, and then Maresca was a similar idea. Can he turn around the clown show? And 3 months into the season, and we've turned it around. So arguably, come January, United could be a very different side. Will they? History would say they won't, based on kind of modern era Man United. But I've been surprised before. I could be surprised again. And honestly, we'll see. I thought Tuchel was going to be a guy, to be honest. And although that's not long-term thinking, he tends to fall out with every club within 2-3 years, a la Jose Mourinho. But he tends to win things, and I thought that might be the direction that Man United are going in. But you found someone younger potentially who's going to win, but we'll see. I think time is going to tell.
Deal where if you have already an existing career, I don't know if it's a mess you want, because you're going to get another great offer, right? A guy like Ten Hag, a guy like Amorim, especially with Amorim, if the Liverpool thing looked like it could maybe possibly happen. There's so many different stories about that it was never going to happen. He used West Ham to kind of in his own head to negotiate, which really backfired and stuff like that. But for those names, it's a rare opportunity to be able to get in charge of a club like United and stuff like. Whereas Tuchel, like Mourinho, these guys, it's not like the coaches in the NBA. They get recycled, and they'll be good teams available for. They get their pick of the job, if you will, as opposed to a rare opportunity, because Sporting Lisbon could go down the drain, and you will never would have heard Amorim's name ever again, for example. So you got to capitalize when you can. But I guess the question is, knowing his system, the 3-4-3 and stuff like that, and I do agree with Jamie. I think United's squad should not be 14th in the league. I mean, my two dogs, I can give them a squad. They can put their paw on there. We can come up with a starting lineup, and they would probably still be about 14th. I can't see the dogs doing any worse. So I guess in that sense, like, do you think you would think anything would be an improvement, right? If nothing else, the new manager smell will last like a month or so. But do you think the current squad fits? And kind of like what Glenn was saying, is this another guy that's going to be set up to fail? Because really, it's never been ultimately the players. It's more been the system that's been the issue at United, where it's almost like people are almost like set up to fail in a roundabout way.
I do not know. This is my honest answer. And I'll be telling United fans that it's okay to not give people false positives. It's okay to not have false positives. It's okay to just say you don't know how it's going to go. I absolutely do not know. One thing I would say for sure, I think Ineos will not be as bad as the Glazers, right? Because I think a lot of times, and I think I said last time I was on here, when we talk about United, they talk about, United have been run bad for so long. Yes, by the Glazers. Ineos took over in February of this year. That's going to go ratified. And the only thing I can criticize Ineos for so far, right now, right, is the decision to keep Ten Hag. It was a very bad decision. Regarding Amorim, when I look at the squad, I see some parts that fit. Like every new manager, I see some parts that do not fit. Right? Mm-hmm. I can see like
which
Martinez,
one is more?
I can see regarding his wing backs part, the whole wing backs thing. I see Dalot fitting into a wing back easily. On the left side, I don't think Mazraoui is a wing back. I don't see that when I look at Mazraoui. I might be wrong. I don't see that. Maybe if Luke Shaw is never fit, so I don't know. I just saw news that he had that's injury setback. He's just him and Malasha.
I just don't think Luke that has the speed for the wing back.
Correct. Again,
like a ground back.
Yeah, no, you're right. Because I remember during Solskjaer's time, we played back to a couple of times, right? And you think, in the back three. Luke Shaw wasn't one of the wing backs. He was one of the center backs. I remember. Mm-hmm. He started was one of the left center backs, right? And in fact, I think Ten Hag has used him in his first season as a pure center back because he's not. So yeah, so the defense is the part I see where the problem might be, and I think the attack is fine. I think we can people that can Garnacho, Rashford, Ahmad. I think we have people that can play the front two. I think the midfield is just okay. I think to be better when Meno comes back to fitness. We miss Meno so much in the midfield. When Meno comes back to fitness, Ugarte has worked with Amorim before. Apparently, I didn't know. I just saw that. He worked with him in Sporting Lisbon before he got sold to PSG. So
did Fernandez play with him?
No.
He joined. Did he come after Fernandez?
Yeah, he came 2 months. He joined 2 months after Fernandez left. Okay. Yeah. So I see some parts, and I like the idea of Amorim, right? I like the idea. He's not my first choice. I like the idea of it. I think from now to the end of the season will kind of be like an extended preseason, but in like real-time live games where he gets to see the players that work and the players he needs to move out and and figure out what profile he needs and think about the rebuild long term. So I think I like the idea of Amorim. Do I know if it's going to be a success? I don't know. I liked the idea of Ten Hag when he joined. Maybe I've never said it. I liked it. I thought it was a good decision at the time when they got Ten Hag. But it turned out not to be. So I think time will tell.
I also heard today, actually, it was like Goldbridge talking about it, and I don't know if it's like nothing is like official yet. I think it's a lot of like here we goes, and Sporting Lisbon put out a statement and stuff. So it's almost official, but not totally official. In terms of like assistance, because like Ruud was told, they have this thing back in Turkey, like they have the children's holiday. And they make like a kid like a prime minister. He's like for an hour, he's like a prime minister. But I like Ruud is like a coach for like an hour. They were like, "Hey, you're the interim coach." And now you're not. Like we just get another guy in. But I heard they would keep the current assistants because supposedly Sporting Lisbon is thinking of making the assistants the manager. Okay. Isn't that setting up the dude from step one? Because when you bring a manager, you want to and that's what usually happens in the off season, because you kind of bring the whole crew in, or he brings his crew in. Mid-season is a bit different because, the other club is like, okay, who's going to watch our boys kind of a deal. Is that a concern? Because is that like setting up this dude from the get-go?
Not really. It's not a big concern because at the end of the day, right? It's just like when we got Rude and some United fans got excited. I was like Rude. At the end of the day, it's the manager that comes up with the game model, how you're going to play. He sets assistants can come in and like give advice here and there. I mean, like see Pep has changed his number 2. How many times? Like 4 or 5 times since Pep has come to Man City, and everything has been the same. Nothing has changed, right? The manager sets the game model, the game principles. The assistants can give advice here and run training sessions, but the key is always the main man. So for me, it doesn't really matter to me personally. The way I see football, it doesn't matter to me.
I know when we had freaking Pep Linders. I remember like what was the news name before Klopp's assistant that left?
Oh,
and everybody was freaking out. What was it, like a Bosnian dude or Serbian dude or
Yes,
whatever? I
yes.
just told you. Everybody was freaking out. They're like, "What are we gonna do? He was the brains." And then like they said the same thing with Pep. Anything bad was Pep Linder's fault. Anything good was Klopp. But Glenn, what do you make of I sadly when we were interested in him, I watched way too many YouTube videos about his tactics and stuff. So sadly, I know way too much about him. And when it didn't happen, I was like, you know what? I'm not watching shit until they sign somebody. So like slots, I started watching like Feyenoord stuff once they signed him and stuff. But
that's how I
mean,
am. I told everybody until I see the sorry to interrupt you. Until I see like a announcement by United, I'm not watching any. People have been sending me videos. I say I'm not interested.
yeah, I spent a lot of hours learning about Amarim, who's now United manager. But I mean, I do like his system. It is like kind of, it's like but it's a huge change because you're
Yes.
going to a back 3 and stuff like that. But how do you like the name otherwise? Obviously, you like, the success we can speak about, Glenn, you were throwing out the numbers. But in terms of like a name, the league he's coming from and stuff like that, I know I was excited when his name was thrown around for Liverpool, but I'll be honest, mine was more about, he can do this with Trent and he can do this with this guy. It felt like it fit the squad a lot more. That was part of my excitement, but where are you at with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's always exciting, isn't it? Honestly, as a Premier League fan, a fan of a team in the Premier League, someone who enjoys watching neutral games, which is, the vast majority of my weekend, right? I think it's good for the league to have a young, progressive, exciting coach joining the Premier League. I think that's good for a lot of teams. That's not necessarily just good for Man United. I think it's great. We're always looking for the next Mourinho, right? So I mentioned Mourinho's name. We're always looking for the next exciting manager who's going to have this reign. And, as long as it's not maybe Chelsea, sorry, Jake, that's fine for me. but otherwise, it won't be Fulham. So otherwise, it's always good fun. And, the way he plays is inherently exciting, right? Pushing high, searching for the ball high. I mean, what I find funny is these Man United players, I mean, they got to get themselves in shape, right? We can't have Eriksen jogging around or half the team just kind of jogging around. They have got to work so hard. It's cool. I mean, the wingbacks are really exciting. That's obviously integral to his system. It's interesting how he pushes the goalkeeper up as well, right? So you'd think Onana's going to see a lot of the ball as well. It's a system and a manager and a vision for a team that makes me want to watch them, right? Regardless of affiliation or color, it makes me think I want to watch this team when he gets into the flow of it because I'm curious to see how it goes. At the minute, the table in Portugal speaks for itself. He's played 9 times, he's won 9 times, and they got 27 points and a 3-point lead at the top of the table. So in the short term, if you're even purely just looking at how has he done so far this season, wouldn't it have been interesting if he was having a tougher start to the season, right? Wouldn't it be interesting if this was played 9, won 6, lost 3, and they're kind of 6th? Would we still be in this position? Possibly. Yeah. It's just interesting to think that short term and long term. But obviously, he's been linked with Liverpool. Obviously, there was the kind of maybe red herring of West Ham, maybe to drum up other interests. Seems like he might want, with respect, slightly bigger in terms of Premier League table than West Ham right now. Man City's also interesting, right? Because he's also talked about in some circles as a potential successor to Pep. That was also been mentioned.
They got their football director.
Absolutely. And that was that kind of synergy, and that relationship was seen as, okay, maybe he's going to wait till the end of the season, possibly win, the Portuguese league, and then maybe look towards Man City. But hey, it's sounding like maybe Pep stays. So big picture, I'm excited. I mean, if I was a United fan, I'd be delighted because you've got somebody who's playing attacking, fast-paced football. I totally appreciate your point, Io, about the lack of one of the wing backs. Dallow's going to thrive in this system. I think Bruno's going to thrive in this system. You think Højlund's going to get a few more goals or a bit more service in this system, but that you need good quality wing backs on both sides. And Chelsea have seen this with Reece James who's integral at his best. He's integral to what they do. Having a player like him so inconsistently fit, say Dallow gets an injury this week, that would really make that system genuinely challenging to play. So that's stuff that I'm interested in picking up on and seeing how it unfolds.
Yeah, I mean, that's the interesting. I think, how the squad fits for one, and it will be a challenge. And that's the biggest challenge of, I think, taking over the Manchester United job. I think every manager, they're like, here's my winning formula. This is how I play and stuff. But then you got to convert those guys in that squad. Some of the guys that they have not been able to get rid of for ages because of the wages and stuff like that. And, will they play that system? Will they fit that system? And it almost after a while, players kind of set the manager to fail. And then, there's always, obviously when things go wrong, there's always a lot of talk about, in the background, the tabloids and stuff like that, which doesn't help. But Jamie, you have a lot of experience for manager changes over there at Chelsea. So you can speak from experience of new manager smell, things getting better, and then things getting worse. New manager smell, rinse and repeat. Where do you see Amorim at?
I mean, I think a lot of it's been said. The tactics are exciting. I think a young manager breeds energy into the club. I do think Man United is a different animal to any other club in the Premier League. Chelsea has its own complications. There's high expectations at City, Arsenal, but Man United is a different beast. So there's not a ton of similarities between Sporting Lisbon and United. Without his team, potentially it will be tougher to hit the ground running. But if nothing else, he's got 2 months. If he really is the long-term plan, which United have tended to give their managers more time than Chelsea, for example. But he's got 2 months if he starts very soon, he's got 2 months to assess the players. Then he's got the January transfer window to come up. He could pick up Chilwell for next to nothing and plug him in at wing back, or someone like
nice
that.
Try there. Nice try.
I really like Ben Chilwell. I've got a couple of Ben Chilwell jerseys, but I think there's plenty of players that you can pick and choose from that will add to the system if none of the players are up to scuff. But he's got 2 months to assess the squad, get them playing to his tactics, and where there's holes, plug players in, ship Casemiro out to Saudi Arabia to fund the whole operation. It's exciting. I thought, while I expected United, or I projected Man United would make a managerial change in October, I kind of thought they'd wait till January. So bold for getting it done now. If they just let it linger, knowing that they were going to make a change, they'd probably not be able to make up places. But if he can turn it around quickly, there's a chance they can still compete for the upper echelons of the Premier League. They're not that far behind that it's too late.
I mean, I would think, I know Jamie's trying to market Chelsea leftovers over there, but number one, I mean, does United even have the finances right now? Because there's a lot of guys on wages that unless he can make them fit, if he has to get rid of them, it's not easy to get rid of them. That's been kind of the problem, like Maguire's, Casemiro's of the world. I mean, I don't know if you throw Rashford in that system, God knows, if you put that in that list. But first of all, do you think if they win against West Ham, this probably does not even happen, right? We're not talking about this change right now. Even Sunday night when people were we were talking on the Discord channel, I was like, I doubt they're gonna fire him now. They'll probably wait till the international break. Do you think kind of like what Glenn was talking about? This is more, let's get this guy before he commits to City kind of a thing, because it does feel very sudden that losing to West Ham, we've had enough kind of a thing. After it was not a bad performance. They played a lot worse.
Correct. I think I think we can only speculate, right? We don't know. We'll never know how they arrived at the decision. If I'm going to speculate based on the timeline of events, I think this was decided during the meeting and international break. The meeting that everybody was tracking.
That nothing came out. Okay.
Yes, I think that's where it was decided, and I think that's when it is. And when I thought about it more yesterday, I went back and looked at our fixtures. and I saw our upcoming fixtures. I was like, this is what they did.
Yeah.
Because our upcoming fixture, Chelsea's a tough one, of course. It's always Chelsea. But typically, Chelsea don't ever beat us at Old Trafford, no matter how bad we are. We kind of, at worst, we get a draw. But so we have Chelsea, we have Leicester twice, mixed in between that. We have Ipswich, and we have Everton. So when I saw that, that's like the kindest run of fixtures, and I looked at the whole of the season, until the end of the season, this is our kindest run of fixtures. So I said, okay, this was decided there that they were going to fire.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's like a great appetizer. They're like, here's Ipswich. Would you like to start with some Ipswich? Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so give him an easy start, so that not a rough start. They wanted to give him an easier start, a new manager. So I think this was decided there. But they just made, they did the hush-hush thing, like nobody say anything. We're going to announce like everything is fine. But that's when they decided. And I'm sure that's when they probably contacted his agents through intermediaries, how they do their thing. And that's when they started the ball rolling. I think so. That's when it
that makes sense. That does make sense. It's just, it comes out odd, but that does make sense that they decided that they snuck out the back door, got in the car and left, didn't say anything. And then regardless of what was going to happen,
they just told them, said they are waiting for what when the next bad loss, when the first loss comes,
it's just a matter of time.
And that's what happened. The first loss came, they pulled the trigger.
Yeah, I mean, they played my team Fenerbahce in Istanbul, and I was like, dude, I can't believe. The funny thing is, I was talking about this on our podcast too. Like, I don't know, like 10, 15 years ago, as a Fenerbahce fan, you would probably take 9 or 10 players out of the starting 11 for United for your team. It would be a dream, And I see those like the 2 starting 11s come out. I'm like, 4, maybe 5. Like, I'm more happy with the Fenerbahce lineup than I am with, and that's sad. I mean, this is like United, and they looked. I mean, Fenerbahce dominated that game. They should have won. They got robbed off a penalty and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, it was a matter of time for that result to come in. So it does make sense. But I know you had to go. So I do want to ask you this. So as of now, that looks so good, though. You guys look great on the bottom half of the league. 14th over there. What is realistic? I mean, even though it's 14th, we're only talking 6 points, for example, from Chelsea. Yeah. Having that's like I say, I do expect some growing pains. There's always is with any manager once the smell wears out. What is your realistic expectation now for the season? We're a quarter of a way in. We keep saying like early in the season, but we passed the quarter point. So
yeah, we're about to 10 games now. I just want United to be fun. I've been honest for the last 16, 15 months, however. It's been a chore watching United. When I watch United, I'm like, I have to do the laundry. Like, I always feel like there's something better to do. And that's where my mind always goes every time. I think I have to go get groceries. I have to do, let me check on my baby, see how he's doing. Like, I'm always thinking of something else every time. It's the chore watching United. I'm being honest with you. It's been like that for a long time. So just make it fun to watch United. That's the first expectation I have on this new manager, whoever he is. The second thing is, I would expect us to finish, if we can finish, somewhere between 7th to 9th at this point. It's okay. I think it's not great, but the start I think has been so bad because people forget, like, we've lost 4 games already and we still haven't played like Man City. We haven't played Arsenal. We haven't played Liverpool away. Like, we have a lot of tough fixtures and we've lost 4 already, so
you guys have a negative goal differential, by
correct,
the way.
Exactly. We are dug a deep hole already, regardless of how far. Because people are thinking of, it's just 7 points. That's not how it works. There are teams in between us and those 7 points who are already like on a good momentum. So I think if we finish somewhere 7th to 9th, I'm okay with it. And if by the end of the season, by the time I get to February, March, if I'm watching United, I'm like, this is how a United team plays. I'm seeing the style. There'll be mistakes, of course. But I'm seeing the style form, like we play out of the back, we play to the press, we press high, out of possession. I see a mid block. If I start seeing that, I'm fine with it. That's the criteria. And I know it's like minimum criteria, but that's where I am. I want to.
No, I don't. I hear you. I mean, like, that's how my brother's a United fan, and that's where he's at. He's like, I mean, it sucks watching them. Like, it is like a torture session, and I can see that. And I think when you get a new manager, even if it is not great, the results are not great, you're like, I see what we're trying to do there. Eventually, that's going to be great. I think the problem with Ten Hag was right when we were like, it's working. They're like, whack, 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 and it's not working again kind of thing. So you're like, okay, I thought it was going to work. And So
There's a
yeah, I
downward
think it would
trend.
be an exciting time, and I think it's like an exciting manager. I mean, hopefully it won't work, and we'll be having the same conversation a couple of years from now with Amarim. But I mean, I feel bad for the dudes in nothing else. But yeah, I'm happy for you. So at least you'll have fun for like 6 months or so. You'll have hope, and that's all we can ask for a
Hey.
United fan.
No problem. I'm just waiting for Chelsea's crisis. That's what I'm waiting for. Chelsea's crisis. Because now everybody thinks Chelsea is fine, everything is good. I'm waiting. When Chelsea's crisis starts, I'll be there. That's all I
We had our crisis last year.
Oh, there's another one coming. I'm
Last
100%
year, it's been like a.
I'm 100% sure another one's coming.
Yeah, I mean that's they've been like shockingly good. I mean, it is called Palmer FC. You had that earlier and it's gone now, but but I mean, yeah, it is kind of like interesting to see how Chelsea is going to go, because I feel like I was saying earlier, like United, when things go bad, it really goes bad. All the tabloids start and stuff like that, especially with big clubs. It only takes a couple of hiccups to get the media going, because that's what the media does, right? They build you up so they can tear you down, kind of a deal. So that's kind of like the name of the game. Ayo, thanks a lot, man. Thanks for hopping on. I was really hoping you could hop on and give us your perspective, but we'll see you next week, bud.
All right, no problem. Take care. Take care, everyone.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting experiment for us as well. So we'll see like what comes out of that. Let's get to the league. I mean, let me ask you guys, though, before we jump on, because I did ask Ayo before you left, but what do you think, Jamie? Where do you think United will end up?
I was looking at the league table when you had it pulled up, and initially I was thinking between 7th to 9th, like I was saying, kind of Conference League, maybe Europa League at the upper echelon. But I was looking at the league table, and there's a few teams out of position to what I would expect to see at this stage of the league. Brighton are probably punching above their weight. Nottingham Forest definitely are. Brentford in the top half. Like you got a good team, but you're probably one injury away from sinking. But Newcastle and West Ham, they're above Man United, also underperforming. So it's not going to be an easy climb. They're not miles away, but I think top half certainly at this stage of the season. But they should really be aiming for 5th, knowing that they'll probably end up 7th or 8th.
Yeah, I mean, I think you would think that would be his goal. I don't think he's going to come in. I mean, he's not going to come in and be like, we're going for 5th. I mean, there's really only a point difference between 5th and 4th and 3rd right now. But like what he was saying is there's a reason why those guys are up there. There's form, squad, established systems and stuff like that. You're not just like trying to catch up on Ipswich. You're trying to catch up on teams that are established and playing well and have like good squads and stuff. Where do you see them, Glenn, at the end of the season?
Yeah, I fully agree with Jamie. I mean, you just look at the table, great analysis, look at some of those teams, us very much included, that, you don't expect to finish ahead of United at the end of the season, right? That's all we're saying. That's no disrespect to anyone, because you'd expect the United squad to rise up. I would say they would, aim for 5th, 6th. I would think maybe 7th with the current top 5 and maybe Spurs ahead of them. If Spurs can just pick up a bit of momentum and regain a bit of consistency, that's 5 or 6 teams that I can see. We talked last week, right, about the confusing teams. We said the Brightons, the Newcastles. They could finish 2 places above United or 3 places below them, because they're the kind of puzzling packages right now we have. But I would say what would be quite funny as the incoming manager would be get a solid league finish, right? 5th, 6th, whatever, 7th. Okay. Win a cup. How funny would it be after all Ten Hag's legacy? Everything, that just gave him the stay of execution time and time again. We won 2 cups. And he was not incorrect to point to other teams, big teams that have not won silverware in that same period. He's not incorrect to do that. But wouldn't it be funny? I mean, I know they've got Leicester. I guess Van Nistelrooy might be in charge of that tomorrow. I don't even know, right? Tomorrow. So they got a League Cup game against Leicester. They win that. Maybe they have a run in that. Yeah, as we were thinking before we went live, that's already a quarterfinal. You win a couple more games, he's won a cup. How far? Yes. That'd be really funny. FA Cup, United traditionally do very well in domestic competitions because they do take it seriously, right? It's part of the club's culture. So top 6, win a cup. That's not a bad season, is it?
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is Ten Hag was talking when they were playing Fenerbahce, who's coached by Mourinho now. he was comparing himself to Mourinho, saying like, yeah, like we're very similar in the sense that we know to win trophies and stuff. And I'm like, dude, really? You're comparing your trophies to Mourinho's trophies? Get the hell out of here. It's just like your little like FA Cup over there. But yeah, I mean, honestly, with Ten Hag, I know like from my brother, it was more than what he was doing. It was like what he was saying. It just felt like he wasn't seeing what was happening. It's one thing to say, like, kind of like acknowledge some of the shortcomings and say, yes, we have to get better on that. We have to do this. Maybe you get sick of saying it, but you still got to keep saying it, as opposed to acting like those are not big issues and saying, away, like a point away at Porto and a point away at Istanbul is not too bad, kind of thing. I'm like, dude, are you serious? This is United. Like, your squad is worth like 10 times more than these teams. You should do better. You should definitely not be like dominated. But yes, so we'll see what Amarim does. Hopefully not too well, so we can continue to make fun of them. So let's look at this week right here. We'll go in the reverse order now because this is the Premier League website. But Forest, I mean, who knew, right? They're up there. We were like, what the hell? Chris Woods is like the next kind of like Holland's or Holland's dad. I don't know which one, but so yeah, he keeps scoring for him. That's I mean, I know Leicester is not all that, but I mean, Forest, I think the key for them is they find goals. Most of the teams that kind of struggle are the teams like in relegation, are teams that find it difficult to score. And they are definitely doing that. So they went away on Friday 3-1, and they are what, sixth or something like that right now, right? I mean, that's kind of sounds crazy to say. They're seventh right now. And that's, you know, for a team that most thought that would probably fight more relegation, that's pretty darn good. Everton won, Fulham won. We're really missing Alex because I don't know where he is at with Fulham right now, because I don't know where Fulham is at with Fulham right now. City 1, Southampton 0. I don't know about you guys. Are we all shocked with this? Because we were talking about triple captaining. I hate fantasy, but you know, triple captaining Holland and stuff like that for a game like this.
I did it, and I regretted it. But you know what? It was one of those cases, truly, of, you know, good decision, bad outcome, because it was his highest XG of the season, right? On a different day, he scores 3-4. He missed a bunch of sitters that you wouldn't expect him to miss. Now, you could argue that, hey, he's actually looked a little bit rustier the last two league games, but we thought he had put that to bed, you know, in the Champions League with a very acrobatic and these incredible goals that he just has this knack of scoring. He's still got to go. You know, I've triple captained and they've got nothing before. People have triple captained people who get sent off before, you know, triple negatives, right? But it was one of those games where I bought Foden in for this game as well. It was one of those games I was watching Brentford, goals flying in. I was just waiting for my phone to ding. I was like, every time Brentford or Ipswich scored, I was waiting for City to get another. And they got a goal so early and it just froze. And that was that. And I was surprised. I thought if there was going to be, you know, high figure win this season, you would have thought the way Southampton have started so rigidly, so disappointingly for their fans, you would have thought this was a 4-5 win, just locked in. Credit to them for keeping it more than respectable and for keeping it tight and honestly having chances themselves. So credit Southampton. You know, you can never really obviously celebrate a loss, but I mean, I think they have deserved a game that isn't a hammering, and it's just good for them that it wasn't a real washout, a real blowout, because us people playing fantasy, you load up on Man City if you see Southampton come.
Yeah, I mean, right. I mean, anytime you see Southampton, you probably load up on the other side, I would think, especially like their form. But yeah, that was a shock. And I don't know if that says much to us about Southampton as well. I mean, that's something. I mean, City as well. Maybe they're not. I know, like, if it was Liverpool and we won 1-0 against Southampton at home, there'll be a lot of rumbling. Like, we got 3 points, but this team is not good enough, blah, blah, blah. So, but when it's City, obviously the conversation is different because they kind of like can go on those rolls. A crazy week this week, by the way, like so many last second goals, one after another. As I was watching that goal rush concept, and it's just like, holy cow, it was bouncing back and forth. Brighton 2, Wolves 2. That was one of those games. Brighton is a fun team to watch. I'm not looking forward to watching them tomorrow. Definitely not looking forward to rooting against Ferdi tomorrow or this weekend for that reason. But they're definitely a fun team to watch. I mean, that was a great game with Wolves, who's also, I think, like a fun team to watch. They have a lot of like exciting plays. Brentford 4, Ipswich 3. That was crazy. So Where do you take that? I mean, apart from like having fun, this team is, you know what I was saying earlier, definitely fun to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, well, for the outsider, is it fun to watch as a Brentford fan, or is it like frustrating, the defensive issues?
It's fun when you win, that's for sure. If you get the 3 points, that makes it retrospectively a hell of a lot more fun. It is frustrating, honestly. It is. I think I'd talked briefly before, the Wolves game when we scored a stack of goals, but we also conceded a lot of silly goals. It wasn't dissimilar, to be honest, this game. I mean, first of all, a shout out to poor Harry Clark on his full Premier League debut. He gets the trifecta of
Never forget that day.
own goal, conceding a penalty, and sent off. I mean, that is, talk about fantasy points. That's -4, isn't it? That is crazy. So, commiserations to him. That's not very fun. The positives are obvious. We got the win. We were 2-0 down. They scored twice in about not even that, twice in 3 minutes. Just simple goals in the first half. We just looked very sleepy. Ethan Pinnock had a rare poor game from his perspective. He has really high standards, and he's been central to our entire Premier League project and before that. So that was a shame to see him look just, not his best. But yeah, conceded some silly goals, and then we do the same. They score 2 and 3. We say, okay, How about we score 2 and 2? And Wissa, the goal has been accredited today to him. They took their time to sort that one out, the official goal committee, whoever decides, but it was an own goal on the day. And they finally gave the second one to him as well today. So he gets a brace on his return, integral player for us. So much better than Kevin Schade up front, with respect to Kevin Schade, who scored maybe quite a lucky goal, but he did score tonight, which was nice in the cup. But having Wissa and Mbeumo back, I mean, is it really any surprise that they both get a brace? They're both on the score sheet twice. They have such a synergy. They have such an amazing friendship off the field. They have such an amazing connection on the field. Seeing them back together and seeing them kind of rip through Ipswich was great. However, Ipswich still scored 3 goals away from home. They got a well-deserved equalizer from Liam Delap. I don't quite know why he didn't start. It sounded like he was getting a bit of a rest, but I mean, he was on the pitch for about 10 minutes and he scored a goal, great goal, and he hit. Not only after we had taken this was a crazy game, but we had taken the lead in the 96th minute, right? Bizarre goal, goalkeeper messes it up, a cross turn shot, whatever. They still go on and hit the post.
Yes.
I mean, what kind of down to 10 men? And I'll just say one more thing. I mean, I could talk about this game all day because it was so end to end. It was so silly, comical defending, some good goals. It had everything. But what I would say is I do think Thomas Frank, who is an incredible manager, and I am glad he's not going to United, of course.
I was going to say, were you worried?
There
was word out there.
Yeah, I didn't think he'd go mid-season, but you never know. It's the Premier League, it's man, you never know. But I would say he made a bit of a mistake. We were 3-2 up, I think it was at this point. They're down to 10 men. We decided to take off Norgard and Damsgaard, double substitution, bring on a couple of other players. And, it just smacked slightly for me of maybe complacency. Arrogance is a bit much, but it kind of felt like as a fan watching it, hey, we think we got this game sewn up. We think we have to win. Ipswich, they're a couple of, they're, player down. The heads have dropped. We've got it in the bag. And that wasn't the case. All I would say is my friend Eli, one of my good friends, he's Ipswich Town fan, lifelong fan, and does some amazing work with their food bank project as well, which is fantastic. But he was on holiday in Amsterdam, and I was texting him the goal updates, and it was 2-0 to Ipswich. I said, hey, this is exciting for you, isn't it? And this first depressing response back was, wait till you win 3-2. And I was like, and then it turned 3-2. And I was like, if you put this energy out there, I mean, come on. But, Ipswich, they're similar to us in some ways. They can score goals, but my goodness, they are really, really vulnerable at the back.
They had only scored 6 goals in 8 games before they played you guys. And then, knock off 3. I mean, they're like a hard-working team. I just don't think they have enough. I don't know if they'll do anything in January and stuff. It's pretty tight down there, but I mean, you don't want to go down too far. I think we talked here before that we all thought Wolves would not be down there. And they are down there. So you would think, like somebody like Wolves could come out of there. So that's another team to battle. But that was like, that was crazy because I was like, it was like the goal rush. I was like, why don't they just show this game and then occasionally go to the other games for goals? Because it would be like a lot easier, a lot less movements that way. But yeah, crazy game. Villa won, Bournemouth won. I think this was my Tonali's pick for last week because I feel like Villa, and I don't know, like that's a team that probably has to do some moves to, like, especially when they play Champions League midweek.
Yeah.
The weekend fixtures are always tricky. And I think that's why I had picked Bournemouth, and it's 1-1. Who did you guys have for Tonali's picks last week?
I went into rival betting shop, Ivan Toney. I'm not sure. Sadly, I missed the show. Was on
that's right.
video.
That's right. You had sent the video. Do you remember who you had, Glenn?
I'm looking at the results. I can't remember. I might have mentioned Wolves getting something at Brighton. That might have been it.
You know what? Maybe.
Wasn't that ending crazy though? That I know we moved past that game, but 4-1. That was almost as bad as Leicester versus. Was it Wolves?
Oh my God!
With Troy Deeney
Yes.
in the championship. Was it 8 to 10 years ago?
That was great. I don't know. Yeah, you saw that, Glenn. Like literally a 4-1, and that's just like so poorly played. And for that to go, that is just crazy. Those are two teams. That's why they're exciting. They just play so like it's freaking like scrimmage. Every game is treated like it's. I feel like Brentford sometimes is like that too. They're like, oh, let's go out there and have some fun, guys, kind of a thing. And there's no like I feel like Marco Silva does that sometimes. Fulham, I mentioned that before. They take the lead and everybody gets like really relaxed, and it's not as result oriented. And I thought the same thing in the Brentford game when they made those substitutions. As a fan, you get that feeling. While the players on the pitch get that feeling too. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, we got this, right? So everybody, and this is the Premier League, man. You only have to take your foot off the gas like 10% or so before the game change. And once the momentum changes, you can't put your foot to the pedal again and switch all the time. It takes a lot. So it was kind of like a weird ordeal. There was some crazy. It was a good weekend of football. I did not wake up for this as good of a fixture as this was. Chelsea 2, Newcastle 1. I honestly, aside from like the highlights, I did not see much of this. So, Jamie, we're relying on your information.
Chelsea dominated the game. We could have.
Are you really, or are you just because we didn't watch, you're going to sell us stuff?
No, we did dominate the game. I think we were ahead in pretty much every statistical category. The game could have easily been 2-2, though. There was one moment where Isak rounded Sanchez, and if he just looked up, that would have been goal.
Square it quicker. Square it. We're screaming, square
it. But in general, I think Chelsea played well enough to win quite easily. Reece James made it 90 minutes or 102, including extra time. It seemed like Maresca maybe was going to take him off, but already used all of his substitution windows without using all of his substitutes and kind of forgot about that. Feels a little bit like we're trying to kind of put a square peg in a round hole, like forcing him and Gusto to be playing. But Reece James did well. We did the Chelsea thing where we get pretty tense and edgy, lose our composure in the last 10 minutes. Reece James made a couple of really good last-ditch defensive clearances to keep us winning. But Cole Palmer, like his that pass for Neto, we needed Neto's speed to get on the end of it. If it was Sancho or someone else, maybe that wouldn't have turned into the goal that it did. But what a ball! Like honestly, the vision was absolutely phenomenal. He did a couple of really good passes in previous games, and I didn't think he would really outdo them. But that ball for Neto, he doesn't get the assist for it, but the assist was wonderful. And Jackson's putting him away. If you take all the non-goal scoring strikers, he's right up there this season.
I guess. To be fair,
non-goal scoring,
anybody could have put that one away with lights. But I mean, I think I feel like he's a little like Nunez-ish. He's a player that goes with confidence. So when it's not going, nothing is going. When it's going, it's going. So, but are you happy? Like when everybody still says Chelsea needs a goalkeeper because they only have like 8, I think, and a striker up top. Do you agree? I had like a Chelsea fan in the chat say that. As a Chelsea fan, do you agree?
Yes, we need a goalkeeper for sure. We have a lot of average goalkeepers, kind of fairly good, no one good. You'd rather sell all of them and get one decent keeper. But up front, we've got a lot of forwards many of whom are playing the same position. Jackson's starting to emerge as someone who's making good runs. If he continues to finish, maybe we don't need a striker. Because what I don't want is to pay 100+ million for Victor Osimhen, or I think that would be like spending similar money on Enzo Fernandez. Like, if we have someone who's scoring goals and fits the system, who can press, who plays for the team, I'm all for that. Last season, Jackson showed that wasn't him, although there were glimpses of potential. I'm willing to give him some time to see if he can make it his own. And meanwhile, we have Nkunku playing pretty well in our B team in the Conference League and Cup competitions. So we've got 2 on-form forwards. Ultimately, we need someone who can score goals, whether it's bringing someone in or one of our strikers showing that he's him. I'm willing to let fate decide who that's going to be. Ideally, we wouldn't be spending hundreds of millions every window. So if Jackson can step up and continue the form that he's in right now, then maybe he's going to be the guy.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I'm not totally sold on him because of like some of the stuff he misses. I just feel like, when you build, I mean, like like some of the wingers that, like Chelsea has, like I think Neto is probably one of the better ones. It's just like, those players though thrive in a system where there's a lot of space, and sometimes you just don't get that space. I think you do against a team like Newcastle, but like you play Southampton or Forest, good luck with that. There's nowhere to run to. You can have all the speed in the world, kind of a deal. So that's when you need that guy in the middle to kind of like break down some stuff.
It was really interesting, actually, though. Maresca moved Palmer around. I think Palmer was really quiet against Liverpool. He got shut down by Curtis Jones and Gravenbach. Yeah. So instead of playing on the right side of the field, roaming on the right side, he was roaming on the left. And Newcastle tried to man mark him constantly. They tried to man mark several players, actually. And it played around with their tactics. You could not determine what formation Newcastle were playing because they man marked pretty much all of our forwards. So you'd have attacking midfielders in defense and defenders following Cole Palmer when he dropped deep all the way over into our half across the field.
And I think
interesting.
Why I thought Liverpool kind of like put out the recipe there just Palmer is the guy you got to chase around, not the forwards, because if Palmer can't get his head up, that pass doesn't go to Neto, for example, and that's the guy that you got to kind of lock down, and then Neto can run all he wants. The ball is not getting there because like Palmer doesn't have time to lift his head up, kind of a thing. And I thought that was kind of like the recipe that we passed out from like Slot. Drunk Vigo, welcome aboard, sir. Says FSG needs to get Slot a midfielder. He wants to run a system. I think that we talked a lot about it, so we're gonna get to that game soon. I mean, we already talked about West Ham United for the most part. We're gonna get to the Liverpool game next. I just feel like it exposed, but I think there are some things that Liverpool will need to do to improve the squad further. But still, I still maintain the fact that the transition has been extremely smooth from a new manager because the squad has been the same. And now we can kind of say, kind of like what Drunk Vigo is saying, you can kind of say, hey, he probably wants this to go there to make the system better and stuff. Crystal Palace 1, Spurs 0 before we get to the Liverpool game. I don't know if somebody picked this. I want to say somebody had this as their Tonali's picks, but I mean, yeah, I think Jake was saying it. He's not here tonight, but he was saying it last show that, if you want to kind of get out of your funk, just play the Spurs. And yeah, he was right. It kind of helped out Palace. And I mean, it's always a difficult away game. When Liverpool went there, I was worried about it, and it was like a tough win. It's always a tough place to go to, but that's a huge 3 points for them. Arsenal 2, Liverpool 2. So I'm going to let the objective guys take a look at this. I mean, we were talking about it before I went on air with Jamie. Arteta, with his Lego head, cried all week about the 85 people that were missing, and then everybody showed up except the guy who doesn't have a red card. So on paper, even though they kind of played the underdog role for the most part, at the end of the day, I mean, especially the first half, they were definitely the better team. Glenn, as an outsider looking in, what do you take away from that game?
Yeah, so I was playing it was an unfortunate clash, especially with the time difference right now. We're an hour sooner here at the minute with the time difference in England, but this clashed fully with with my final game of the season, which ended up in a humbling 8-1 loss, sadly, in the cup final. So I had a rough Sunday lunchtime, especially in goal. That was no fun at all. But I got back and it was just 2 minutes left, and I was like, so I put it on Peacock, and they do the kind of biggest moments of the game so far, right? So I watched through those, and then watched the full highlights, later on. And yeah, I think Arteta had a right to be frustrated that his team didn't win over the course of the 90 minutes. I think at the end of the season, this will be a better point for Liverpool than it will be 1 point for Arsenal at home, right? I think that's probably fair, especially when you're, scoring a late equalizer so simply on the break. I mean, that's a frustrating goal to concede, isn't it? You could see Arteta fuming about that. It's just
like a FIFA goal, right? Just long ball and then cross to the middle.
I know, and exactly, and then it ends with the most clinical, goes to a quick player who passes it to a clinical player, and then suddenly you're all tied up. It wasn't funny, the whole will Saka be fit? Will he not? We don't think he will be. Of course, he looks great, and he scores a really nice finish. I mean, talk about another clinical goal. That was a fantastic finish. And then you get a couple of goals from set pieces as well, which was interesting as well, which both managers you feel will be frustrated about. Because if you're going to concede, honestly, from Arteta's perspective, you're going to concede, set pieces and goals on the counter. That's really disappointing because you've done all the hard work, in the middle of the park throughout the 90 minutes to kind of try and squeeze the creativity out of Liverpool, which they did to some extent. I think this just shows that these are two evenly matched sides. And, everyone, Brentford included, are going to complain about injuries, till the end of the season because key players are going to be missing. As you said, it was ironic that was the tune the Arsenal fans were singing the entire week building up to the game. And then, it's just Saliba who can't play anyway. It's a red card. So I was like, oh, for goodness sake. But, I would say positives from both sides. If I wanted to be in a camp that was feeling better, it would be Liverpool. You can't go wrong with a late equalizer at the Emirates, right? Final 10 minutes of the game of the regulation time. That's a great point. And I don't think Liverpool hit the heights they've been hitting throughout the season so far. That's fair to say. Not Slot's strongest game, not the team's strongest game, but end of the season, point at the Emirates. Who doesn't want that? I mean, that's great.
I mean, I think so. I mean, Jamie, they were the team that needed the 3 points because if we got the 3 points, I don't care what Alan says. It's pretty much, you can just make your Champions League top 4 plans for the rest of the season. You're not catching City and Liverpool if you're 6-7 points behind after 9 games. And going into the game, like I said, based on the injuries they supposedly had, it looked like, well, if you're going to get 3 points at Emirates, now is the time. But the way the game was unfolding, and we were kind of behind the 8 ball and always kind of like chasing the ball more than anything else. At the end of the day, the points was like, okay, I guess we'll take it, even though we were hoping for 3 before the match started. But it does seem like in the grand scheme of things, it almost helped both teams where Liverpool can say that's nothing bad to lose points away over there. And Arsenal can say, hey, we're still in it at least because they're only 4 points behind.
I think there was more pressure on Arsenal at home. And coming into the season, Arsenal had been so close last year. And there was a lot of attention on you cannot drop points, especially at home, regardless of who you're playing, especially when you're leading with 10 minutes to go. So from Arsenal's standpoint, they've got to be frustrated for throwing away 3 points, But ultimately, I think a draw was probably fair. And you're right, both teams are still in it, none are miles behind. It would have been an opportunity for Liverpool to stamp their authority on this Premier League. And we spoke a couple of weeks ago about how your fixtures were about to get really tough. You had Chelsea, who you beat, and then Arsenal. If you'd come out of those 2 games with 6 points, that would have been a real point to make on the season. You've come out of them with 4. I think that's still really good going for a new manager who's still finding his first 11 with injuries, continuing into this tough stretch. So I would say Liverpool ahead of Arsenal on the table. No one would have expected that going into the start of the league. And you are 1 point behind City, I think. So that point's better for Liverpool, if you ask me.
Yeah, I guess in some way, like I say, before the build up to the game, it felt like, hey, this is a great opportunity. Kind of like you say, not only put our stamp on it, because you're never going to write City off, even if you're like 3 points ahead or anything like that. But you can write Arsenal up or 7 points behind. They would be in there. You wouldn't even see them in the rearview mirror. But you always kind of look for City in the rearview mirror. So in that sense, it was disappointing. I mean, going back to what Drunk Vigo was saying, I think that kind of, there are some things where it felt like we saw that for all the shit that, Liverpool fans give Szoboszlai, we kind of missed him in the beginning. I think that was kind of like, we didn't expect Arsenal to play the way they did. So our starting 11 really did not match their midfields, and we kind of got overrun until Szoboszlai came in with his pace. He's a lot more physical. He's a big dude. And kind of like that midfield change, because with Mac, you could not battle against like Rice and stuff like that with Jones. And I think Jones was better in that double as opposed to the Szoboszlai role. But this team is missing, oddly, Elliott, because that's the only guy that can give Szoboszlai a breather, I think, and play that position. But we don't even know, because, he hasn't gotten a chance to play it because he's been injured most of the season. Missing Jota in a game like this, I think, was kind of like, it hurts at the end of the day. Go ahead, Jamie.
How much of a loss do you think Jota will be? So that was going to be my question. He seems to have been Slot's preferred option up front, even though you've rotated.
Yeah, I mean, he's supposed to be out till the international break, so that just came out today in the pre-match press conference, because he has like bruised ribs from the Chelsea game. And I don't know, the thing is, like, Jota, similar to Szoboszlai, a lot of fans like look at it, they're like, oh, he's not like really in the game, but then he can pop in and score a goal. It's a lot more than that. I mean, he does a lot off the ball, and I kind of always go back to, they're nowhere near close. Nobody will ever be Bobby, because he was a unicorn, and the way he played and what he did when he didn't even have the ball. I feel like Jota is as close as you can get to it. That's one thing I think Nunez cannot do that Jota can. And not to mention Jota, I don't know. There are times, man, I've seen Jota have the ball 1v1, and I'm like, that's in. You kind of almost have confidence that's going to go in. Like when he shoots, you look at the corner, you're waiting for the ball to get to that corner in the net. You got kind of confidence in his finishing. Don't have that with Nunez yet. He brings other craziness. I mean, his speed on that ball, I mean, it's just like nuts. I was afraid he was off, actually, but I mean, he is ridiculously fast with the ball, off the ball. I mean, he can really pressure a defense. I don't think it's going to be the end of the world just because it's only like these 4 or 5 games. The only thing that does hurt is you can't rotate as much. Normally, we had a full rotation with Chiesa out. I mean, Slot was talking about that in the pre-match today. You had 6. Probably, I would think. I mean, I know, Chelsea has like 85 guys who play forward, but in terms of quality, that 6 is probably the best 6 in the league. Like if you put, on the left, you can have Diaz or Gakpo. In the middle, you can have Jota or Nunez. On the right, you can have Mo, and then now Chiesa and stuff like that. That was the best 6, I thought, in terms of depth. Well, now you're down to 4 because Chiesa is hurt as well, and he's never gotten up to pace. I don't think we're going to see him until after the international break either. So that hurts because there's a game tomorrow. Normally, you would say, okay, the second 3 goes out there. Well, now you're going to have to play probably Gakpo there. Then he's going to have to play the weekend. That's what I think it hurts. Slot was even talking about today. Maybe we should call Banter back. I don't know if they're going to try something like Szoboszlai playing right wing or somebody who doesn't normally play right wing or something like that. But that's how it hurts, I think, more than result-wise. But against Arsenal, I mean, he has Arsenal's number. As a player that Bobby did as well. I would have rather had him out there. I know Nunez got the assist and he's had like 2 good games, but games like this where it's going to be very tactical, like a lot of chess being played on the pitch, I think I would rather have Jota out there in terms of soccer background, the game intelligence and stuff like that. If you're playing checkers, yeah, throw Nunez out there and he'll knock everybody off the freaking board. But for like games like this, I think I would always prefer Jota. But hopefully international break. So I think he's only missing 3 more Premier League games and obviously the 2 Champions League games. So we shall see. It's going to be, it was a very interesting, very stressful game. Very stressful game for me. Just like watching that by itself, just because of how poor we played in the first half. And then afterwards, it was kind of like, I mean, when you watch the highlights, it's like on this end, then it's on that end. One misplaced pass, like one rushed pass. It was just both teams. I'm sure it was very frustrating for Alan, who was over there, especially when their goal got overruled. Wish he was here to tell us all about it, but he's pissing off some Frenchmen out in Paris right now as we speak, I think so. Okay, it's that time of week, Tonali's picks. We do this every week. We pick games that we think Tonali would put money on. Or if you're Jamie, you go visit the other. I got to put Tony in the background sitting or something like that so that they're both in the same place. They're not in competition. They're working together. Teammates in gambling. Here are the fixtures next week. Jamie, we will start with you on this one. Who is your Tonali's pick? Don't you
Who
even
is
go
my
anywhere near Brighton.
Tonali's pick? I think there's a couple of games I'm really or 3 games in particular actually I'm looking at. Liverpool Brighton, that'll be a tough one. Forest West Ham, based on their league position, I could see some reversion to the mean. I think West Ham could do Forest there. And then Tottenham Villa is going to be really interesting. Villa coming off Europe in the week, Tottenham coming off poor performance. So this is a long, elongated answer. My Tonali's pick is going to be Tottenham beating Villa, which normally would not be an upset, but based on current form and position, I think it would be.
Yeah, I mean, Tottenham is one of those teams that's like, who knows? Just roll the dice and see what's going to happen. Glenn, where do you put your money with Tonali?
Yeah, I love Tottenham versus Villa being an upset. I love that, Jimmy, because I kind of agree. It's just an intriguing one. I mean, tell us that a few years ago. It's surprising, isn't it? I'm going to throw some money, some figurative money on Bournemouth. They gave Arsenal such a runaround, didn't they? And I know they're mitigating circumstances. We have a red card, but as we talked about on the show, you know, they were playing well before there was the red card. They were outplaying Arsenal, and I think they can do the same thing to Man City. Now, Alex Scott's injured for a bit, which is a shame, but Semenyo, if he hits the speed and directness and aggression that he's been hitting this season, he can cause City a whole load of problems. You know, Bournemouth's a tough place to go. It's a smaller ground, isn't it? You know, Man City are used to passing the ball to death at the Etihad, boring their own fans, boring everyone who likes football. But, you know, they're going to go to a proper ground. It's going to be sold out. You know, I think Bournemouth are playing really solidly this season. And I can see Bournemouth holding Man City to a draw. I can certainly see that.
That's where I was going to go after 2, but I was like, I don't know if that ends up being too much of a wishful thinking kind of game. Normally, I would have gone with the Newcastle Arsenal one, knowing Arsenal's situation, the injuries, but they're playing Preston North End tomorrow, so that gives them plenty of opportunities to be able to rotate. If they were at a Premier League matchup in the cup, I would probably go with Newcastle, but I'm going with Bournemouth as well. I do think it's a tough place to go to, and I really don't think, maybe it's wishful thinking, but I don't think City is as good this year. They are not settled in yet, so they're going to be hurting with the Rodri situation and stuff like that. So let's hope. Well, I mean, I'm hoping at least for some Bournemouth magic on that one and getting some points away from City. So 2 Bournemouths and 1 Villa for Tonali's picks this week. We'll see where we end up. Well, gentlemen, thanks a lot as always, and thanks for those all watching, listening. Hit that like button, give it a share. If your team is not represented on the panel and you want to hop on and protect and give, Ipswich or whoever we slammed on this week, just send us a message and join the panel. We would love to hear from you. It's always in good banter and stuff until Alan comes back, and then we'll give him a lot of shit about Arsenal. But have a great week, everybody. We'll see you guys next week. Take care.